Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take, a whole stack of information and really pull out the most important bits, the key insights, just for you. Today, we're doing something a bit different. We're diving deep into the life, the journey, and the vision of one person, Modeste Gnamé Seri. Our source material, it's a pretty detailed personal biography and statement, gives us a real glimpse into a life really dedicated to change. So our mission today is to unpack his background. It's incredibly diverse, from finance all the way to, well, fervent political activism. We want to understand his specific ideas for peace, for governance in Ivory Coast, and also get a handle on the, frankly, significant challenges he's faced. You'll really discover how one person's commitment can, ripple right through a nation's story.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating here, I think, is that mix. You've got this high-level professional expertise, finance, Wall Street, and then you combine that with a really deep personal commitment to public service, to peace. As we explore this, you'll see how his experiences, they've shaped a very specific, very clear vision for his country's future.
Okay, let's get into that journey then. What's maybe surprising or what stands out about Modeste Gnamé Seri's early life, his professional path, starting right back in Ivory Coast?
Well, he was born in 1966 in Guiboroa, Ivory Coast. He's married, has 2 children. His early education was Catholic schools there. Then he went to the INSET Institute, focused on accounting and financial management.
Okay.
But then he went abroad for higher education, earned a master's degree in finance, and also a diploma in banking and high financial studies. That was from the American Banking Institute. And importantly, he also got licensed by the NATSD in the U.S.
And that's the National Association for Security Dealers, right?
Yes.
For finance professionals.
Exactly. A key certification in the securities world. His career started back in Abidjan with the French bank Société Générale de Banque. He was a client account analyst, then manager. And from there, he made the move to the U.S., became a stock market specialist for a Wall Street investment bank. And he actually reached the level of vice president at G&H Investment Bank in New York.
Right, vice president on Wall Street. That's pretty significant. But here's where it gets really interesting, isn't it? This whole finance background, it's not the full picture. You mentioned community engagement started early. How did that side of things, that early involvement, sort of transition into this really profound political and peace activism later on?
Yeah, you're right. It started young. He was head of class in school for several years. At INSET, the Finance Institute, he was president of something called CJFISC, the Club of Young Financiers.
Okay.
He was also active in the Rotary Club back in Abidjan, Cocody branch, and part of the Alumni Association for the American Banking Institute grads.
So leadership roles from early on?
Definitely laid some groundwork. The shift into political activism, though, that really came from a deep concern. A concern for finding peace in Ivory Coast, for reversing what he and others saw as political decay, institutional decline. And it was that concern that led him, along with other Ivorians and, interestingly, foreign supporters of good governance, to form DJCI.
DJCI, Diaspora et Jeunesse de Côte d'Ivoire.
That's the one. Diaspora and Youth of Ivory Coast.
Okay, so DJCI, they put forward this visionary peace plan back in 2004. What was so visionary about it? What were the key elements they thought were absolutely essential?
Well, the visionary part, I think, wasn't just, let's have peace. It was the insistence on a nonpartisan transitional government.
Ah, nonpartisan. That's the key.
Exactly. In a country that had been, deeply divided by partisan politics, often along ethnic lines, for decades. Proposing a government with no ties to the past conflicts, that was radical. It wasn't about tweaking the system. It was about a reset.
A reset, okay.
Yeah, hitting reset on the foundations of trust. The main job of this transitional government, reconciliation, fostering unity, inclusion, bringing people together before trying to hold national elections. They saw that sequence as crucial.
So reconciliation first, then elections.
Absolutely. DJCI explicitly said this was, and I quote, the only path to ensure genuine and sustainable peace, reconciliation, and institutional reconstruction of Ivory Coast.
Strong words, the only path.
Very strong. And they pushed this hard. Locally, they ran campaigns inside Ivory Coast to get sort of popular buy-in. And abroad, they lobbied. The UN community, U.S. Congress, the administration, human rights groups, democracy NGOs, other civil society players.
A two-pronged strategy, then.
Definitely. Inside Ivory Coast, they worked with CUPCI, that's the Convention for Unity and Peace in Ivory Coast. And they were active members of the CSCI, the Ivory Coast Civil Society Convention. Building alliances was key.
Right.
And abroad, they collaborated with the Center for War Peace Studies, CWPS, based in New York, a think tank focused on conflict resolution. Modeste Seri actually served on their board of management, too.
Interesting connection. Okay, so after over 10 years in the U.S., building this career, doing this advocacy, Seri returns to Ivory Coast in early 2006. What was the bigger picture then? His overarching vision, not just for Ivory Coast, but maybe for Africa? And crucially, what kind of pushback did he immediately face?
Well, his core belief, his driving vision, is really about the need for fundamental change across Africa. He talks about ensuring real democracy, good governance, and crucially, respect for the rule of law.
Rule of law, yeah.
He envisions a society free from ethnic manipulation, from those kinds of hostilities, where the judiciary is truly independent, impartial justice, a system free of corruption, where the people in charge actually work for the common good, not, for themselves or their group.
That's a pretty bold vision.
Extremely. And putting that vision out there, engaging so directly,
Yeah.
well, it put him on a collision course with the powers that be. The source material is quite specific here. During Laurent Gbagbo's presidency around 2008-2009, he was, and the text says, wrongly accused, and ended up spending almost 2 years locked up in Abidjan's main prison, Gnamé.
2 years? On what grounds?
Alleged threats to state security. But, and this is critical, the source emphasizes, no formal charges were ever laid, no judgment took place.
So detained for nearly 2 years without charge or trial.
Exactly. It says he was arbitrarily released eventually due to pressure from international human rights groups and also France.
Oh, that's not just political opposition, that's direct persecution.
It's a stark example, isn't it? Almost 2 years in prison without due process. It kind of highlights the very issues he was trying to address, the lack of rule of law, potential political imprisonment.
Makes this fight very personal, I imagine.
You have to think so.
Yeah.
It's not abstract for him. And then under the next regime, the one installed by war in 2011, he continued his criticism. He opposed what the source calls its ethnically based policies.
Implying favoritism towards certain ethnic groups, that's always a flashpoint.
Precisely. And because he kept speaking out, kept being critical of what he saw as unjust policies under Ouattara's government, he eventually had to flee Ivory Coast, went to Ghana, and he's been living there in exile for the last 15 years now.
15 years in exile in Ghana, but it sounds like that time wasn't perhaps wasted from a political standpoint. The source says it was quite productive. How so?
Yes. Apparently his time in Ghana has been, quote, very beneficial for his political work. He mentions meeting prominent leaders there who helped him better understand Ghana's democratic system. He saw it as something that could potentially help Ivory Coast tackle its own, often fraught, election issues. Learning from a neighbor, basically.
I see. Gaining insights into functional democracy.
Right. And also, just being physically close to Ivory Coast was important. It gave him the, quote, opportunity to work with my followers on the ground for my return and presidential campaign.
So he could maintain contact, keep organizing, keep the base engaged, even from exile.
Exactly. Kept the political momentum going, despite the circumstances.
All right, so fast forward to now. We're looking ahead to the October 2025 presidential elections in Ivory Coast. What's the main focus for Modeste Seri and DJCI right now? And what's the absolute core of his proposed solution to stop the country potentially sliding back into major conflict?
Their current work, as described, is intensely focused on working to put together foundations for sustainable peace and reconciliation, specifically before those October 2025 elections.
Proactive, not reactive.
Precisely. And the core solution, the central plank of his platform to avoid another conflict, it comes back to that key idea, a period of transition, specifically a transition government whose members have nothing to do with the human rights violations of the last 30 years in the country.
A clean break from the past, people untainted by previous conflicts.
That's the idea. He envisions it as a team of competent patriots, men and women of integrity, ready to work transparently for the people, the goal, to build strong democratic institutions, for justice, for lasting peace.
And how does he plan to actually make this happen? A transitional government isn't something you just declare, right?
No, absolutely not. The source says he counts on the mobilization and support of the people. The idea is to get widespread popular backing for this concept of a transitional government first, to reconcile the nation, create the conditions for peaceful, transparent elections down the line.
So it relies heavily on popular will, on grassroots support to push for this fundamental shift.
That seems to be the strategy, yes.
Yeah.
Mobilizing the population behind this specific path.
When you step back and look at this whole story, what really strikes you about just the sheer persistence, this person's vision, their efforts over decades, especially given the personal cost involved,
Yes.
imprisonment, Exile.
I think what's most striking is that unwavering commitment, not just to peace in general, but to such a specific framework. This idea of the nonpartisan transitional government as the absolute foundation is a very detailed prescription for national healing.
Hmm.
And the fact that this vision hasn't really changed, despite everything he's been through, the prison time, the exile, the constant opposition, it suggests an incredibly deep conviction. It seems the adversity hasn't diluted his goal. If anything, it might have, sharpened it, strengthened his resolve that this specific path is the necessary one.
That was, yeah, a truly deep dive into the life and mission of Modeste Gnamé Seri. Quite a journey. We've really traced it, haven't we? From Wall Street finance professional all the way to dedicated activists. We unpack that specific peace plan from DJCI, the transitional government idea. And we've understood the immense personal sacrifices, imprisonment, exile, all driven by this unwavering vision for a democratic, a just Ivory Coast.
It really does raise a significant point, doesn't it? When you look at individuals like this, people who face such, well, profound challenges,
Yeah.
yet they keep pushing, keep advocating for a very particular path to peace, to reconciliation, it just underscores the kind of enduring power of having a clear vision, doesn't it? And that relentless commitment, even when things look incredibly complex, incredibly turbulent.
Absolutely. And for you, our listener, maybe here's something to think about after hearing all this. How might an individual's really unique blend of skills like Modeste Seri's high-level finance expertise, understanding systems, risk, combined with that deep personal commitment shaped by lived experiences like imprisonment and exile, how might that combination uniquely shape their approach to tackling huge national-level problems, especially when they're advocating for something as specific and potentially disruptive as a transitional government? Something to mull over.